I'm Joe. Nice to meet you, brother. I love watching you grow up.
He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man.
Touchdown!
Is this the dagger?
Fernando Tatis Jr., a grand slam.
Iguodala. It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. Like,
Pull up your pants. Take off the bra and be a man.
Welcome to From the Backseat, hosted by Clark and Ethan.
it's funny.
Hello and welcome to From the Backseat. I am your host, Ethan, and I am joined today by my co-host.
What up, guys? A little early morning action here. Clark, that is me. Super stoked to be back. Really looking forward to getting into things today, breaking down week one, rolling out a couple new segments for you, and of course, always, hot takes. So ready to get in on things.
For sure. How are you feeling this morning?
Feeling good, It's Thursday. Going to Tahoe this weekend. Pretty stoked on that. It looks like the fire up there is getting contained a little bit. Air quality is improving. So how can I not be stoked about that?
That's
and
great.
Football this weekend too. That's great. We love
I
that.
know. We got a good Thursday night game.
We do great tonight game.
So that's big time.
I mean, how could it? I mean, that'll probably be that won't be obviously not the highest rated season game of the year for the NFL, but it should be. It's a pretty big matchup for week two. I mean, Chargers starting off with two divisional games. They can not only go 2-0, but they can start 2-0 in the division. That would be massive right out of the gate. So people would be super stoked on that. I would have to imagine as Chargers fans.
Yeah, I mean, that would be huge as they move into 2-0, and their schedule gets super soft. They play like all the worst teams in the league until they're bye.
No, it's super helpful. I mean, that's the one thing I would say for like the Chargers as a team that I think people have left out is that not only they look really good. I know it's only been one game, and their team on paper looks really good, but because they finished in third place, they play all the third place other teams in the divisions. So it really kind of softens for them outside of the division. So it's important to win those. So, for Kansas City, you have some tougher first place teams you'll have to face.
Also, I would say the divisions they play. I mean, I felt like the NFC West going into the season looked really tough, but now seeing especially two of these teams, I think that's a lot easier. And we play the AFC South. So
yeah, that's not the hardest thing in the world,
Yeah. The AFC South is probably the worst division in football.
I think it's the worst.
I mean, the Texans and Colts just tied, and the Texans were probably in the front runner to get the number one seed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think actually a lot of those teams. I mean, again, you've heard my stance on it at this point. I think week one, it appeared to be almost a wash. I mean, there's so many teams. Maybe that's something we should have actually. I'll save it because it'll be my hot take, but we'll get there.
No, that's totally fair. So let's get into our show, and let's start off with some start bench cuts. So today, Clark, I have two about rules. So we're going to do two about rules, and then we got one extra one. So what we're going to do is our first start bench cut. So start bench cut, NFL rules edition. Underthrown PI, defensive holding being 5 yards, or the current overtime format.
So I'm gonna start the current overtime format. I'm actually of the opinion. Are we saying this like the worst? Like which one? I'm starting the worst one, or if I'm starting the worst one, I apologize.
No. It's you're starting the best one and then cutting the worst one.
Okay, gotcha. So I'll stick with. I'm starting the overtime current period. I actually don't have any issue with the NFL overtime period. If you're the team that has to kick first, just stop them one time. That's not that incredible of an ask. I mean, I get that it's a little bit unfair that maybe you have to, the other team that scores a touchdown gets it. But here's the thing. If you keep doing the touchdown thing, the game just goes on it almost could go on for eternity. Like that Bills and Chiefs game, who knows how long that would have extended to if each team got the ball. But for me, I think asking your defense to get one stop is not that insane of a thing. So I think the NFL overtime rule is fine. I don't have an issue with it. The bench, I will go ahead and say, God, it's tough. I would say holding only be 5 yards. I mean, I think there's some cases. I think most of the time, if it's really far downfield, I feel like, or a substantial distance off the line of scrimmage, it's typically called pass interference. there's very few times I feel like I see it really, really far, like 40 yards on a pass, and they're like, "Oh, holding." No, they'll usually call it PI. So that'd be my bet. What was the last one again? Was it
the last one was underthrown PI.
Underthrown PI? Actually, no, I'll switch that. Never mind. Just kidding. No, underthrown PI. Yeah, I'll definitely cut. I'll cut underthrown PI. That's like really. It sucks because I know all flags that are thrown are technically judgment like calls, but underthrown balls I feel like are far too rewarded in the NFL game. They get way too much leeway. Like quarterbacks can throw a really shitty pass because their wide receiver has to stop and go back, and the DB who's been tracking the whole time can't immediately turn on a dime. Is like, caught in that middle spot, and he gets flagged for what was a terrible pass by the quarterback is not fair. So start the overtime rule, bench holding for 5 yards, and then of course you got to cut the underthrown PI. I think it's like a thing quarterbacks know now. They're like, if I got one-on-one, if I'm not sure, and I just got to huck one up, underthrow it a bit, and could get that flag.
There's one specific quarterback that does it all the time.
Can I think? Wait, hold on. How good is he?
You would call him mid.
I would call him mid. Huh.
Think about a short white receiver who would run a lot of deep posts, who would go up against taller defenders, and he would just kind of throw it up there. So he would turn around and make it look like it was a good ball.
Oh God! Why can't I think of anyone? Who do I think? I know I've seen it all the time.
Yeah, it's Derek Carr.
Oh yeah, Derek
Carr does it all the time, and I swear on that pick to Devontae Adams, which was that super underthrown.
Raiders fans for some reason wanted it. They were like, "That's PI." I'm like, "No." Yeah, that's a great example. That was a well underthrown ball. Really,
it was way underthrown, and that was clearly what he was trying to do, and it was just a great play by Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah.
No way was that pass interference.
No way. Not only that, but he threw into triple coverage. So,
yeah,
it's like, what do you want?
Easy.
So, great game this season, first game of the season there, Derek. That was inspirational.
All right, so our second one. So, start, bench, cut, MLB rule changes edition. No shift, bigger bases, or a pitch timer.
This one's kind of tough for me because I heard an argument yesterday against like pro no shift that I actually kind of liked. Tony Gwynn Jr. and Jesse Aguilar on the Padres radio broadcast, they bring up a good point. That eliminating the shift, not every team, you can see different variations of teams. Like not every team has to be cookie cutter, the kind of same build because you need X to do whatever. Each player to have a certain role. Now with no shift, it allows you to mold your roster a little bit differently, which I think is kind of nice. However, that being said, I still think no matter what, you have to cut the shift rule. I think the shift it's there because it's just advantage, it's just strategy. You risk leaving one half of your infield essentially wide open, but at the same time, it's the hitter's job to go the other way if they can. It's not that insane of a concept to be like, all right, just go the other way with the pitch. You can do it, but guys just don't. So I will say I will cut the shift. I think it's stupid in some ways still, even though I think I do agree with the idea that you can mold your team differently now with some of the rule implementation. You can do different things. Yeah. I will bench the pitch clock. I think the pitch clock's fine. What I actually hated, I don't know if you saw this, but they limit batters walk-up music now. Like you can only have it for 10 seconds. I'm like, screw that. Play it a little bit longer if you want. Who cares? If it's a fun one, the crowd gets into it. It's fine. But the pitch clock, that's fine. I think that will increase the pace of play for sure. I don't know. I feel like there's been a pitch clock in the past, or at least an in-between inning timer, and I don't know how much players abide by it. So the enforcement's the only thing I'm concerned about. And then the start, the base, I think the increased base size is good. I think it's good for player safety. I think it's a main goal. You hopefully avoid situations where guys, roll their ankles or, slip on get too close to one another, running into each other. I think it's good for player safety. So I definitely start the increased bag size.
Okay. So our last one is start, bench, cut. Worst NFL Week 1 decisions. Nathaniel Hackett kicking a 64-yarder.
Okay.
The Arizona Cardinals blitzing Mahomes 54% of the time. Or the Rams not targeting Cam Akers or Allen Robinson in the game.
So the one I'm starting is the one I think it's the worst decision. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
The worst decision of Week 1 has to be, unfortunately, Nathaniel Hackett. I know he went back after the post and the next day's press conference and said, yeah, looking back at it, it was a mistake. So I guess kind of props to him for acknowledging it. I don't know if he'll actually change his discourse, but look, here's the thing. If you pay a quarterback $275 million and you're 4th and 5 and you're debating whether or not to go for it or kick a 64-yarder, which one time last season would have been an NFL record, you leave the ball in your quarterback's hands because you paid them all that money. I didn't understand the decision then. I won't ever understand. It was 5 yards. They could get 5 yards. I believe. I'm pretty confident. So I would say that's the stupidest decision. The second dumbest decision from the after. So my bench would be blitzing Mahomes 54% of the time. The Cardinals have decent corners, I suppose, but blitzing Mahomes that often is really just not going to work. It gives him too many one-on-ones. He's going to find the guy that he wants. Plus, if you're blitzing, you probably leave Isaiah Simmons, who I don't know if you saw him on Travis Kelce on Sunday, but that was a disaster. So Cardinals, very stupid on that one. And then what was the last one again?
Not targeting Cam Akers or Allen.
Yeah,
Robinson.
that one I really don't. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Cam Akers, I don't know. And Allen Robinson, I guess I'm more chalking it up to they just didn't win their routes as much, or they didn't. Like with Akers, they were probably like, well, he's not running the ball well. I always felt the Cam Akers hype was a little bit much. Allen Robinson, I'm guessing, just didn't win his one-on-ones, which is probably more concerning. But again, it's just Week 1, so what are you going to do? But yeah, that would be my order. I would definitely just cut that one. I didn't mind the Akers and Robinson not getting targeted as much. Obviously, you want to get more involved in the offense, but they could have just not been winning their matchups. Okay,
so what we're going to do now is that was our start bench cut. I totally agree about the Hackett thing, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the tweet that like seals how bad of a decision it is I forget who it was, but basically it was like, this was the NFL record this time last year.
Yeah. And McManus is a big leg, but it's not that big.
Well,
it's in Seattle. It's like there's so many variables. It's just stupid.
Well, and what's funny is I talked to my dad about it, and my dad was basically like, yeah, I mean, 5 yards with Russell Wilson, I don't know if you can do that. And I'm like, why are you paying him $250 then? Why are you paying him all this money if you really don't believe he can get you 5 yards?
I know, exactly. I mean, 5 yards, I'm certainly betting. Well, maybe this is a different scenario because Denver was out of time. Well, there's a lot of things. They had one timeout.
They weren't. They had 2 timeouts. Because remember, they actually
you're right.
Because they took the timeout to kick the field goal.
No,
so
you're right.
They had 3.
So I guess that's another thing too that Nathaniel Hackett I don't think got enough heat on. That was a terrible clock management. I mean, they huddled at one point and then like spread out and then didn't know what they were like. Courtland Sutton had no idea what he's running the route on the outside. They wasted about 40 seconds just to call a timeout.
I mean, if you're kicking the field goal, it makes sense to bleed the clock because you don't want to leave time. But why are you kicking a 64-yard?
No, exactly.
I get that was his max range. But that's literally, as of last year, that's the NFL record, and only Justin Tucker has hit something longer than that.
No, there was no reason to kick there. There's no variable of existence that told you, oh, time to kick this ball. Not at all.
I mean, especially with the weapons you have on Denver's offense.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, all you need is a 5-yard slant, a 5-yard out, anything. You're going to win. I mean, Seattle, they played well, but their corners aren't like spectacular. I mean, Quandre, just don't go after Diggs. I'm pretty sure Diggs is safety at this point.
He is a safety.
So I'm like,
no, it's true. Just look anywhere else on the field. I mean, the other thing,
Albert O. I don't know. There's any other opportunity to do that.
I don't get it. I don't understand that decision in any sense. And the whole time I was sitting there, and a bunch of Charger fans pointed this out of like, man, if Brandon Staley like didn't pick up the 4th and 5, people would like go crazy that he didn't kick the field goal. Like it would be the other way.
No, I don't think anyone would.
I don't think anyone would. I just think I don't get why you ever kick a field goal there unless if you have Justin Tucker.
That's about it. Justin Tucker's the only guy who I'd be like, all right, I kind of get it. But even then I'd be like, well, hold on a minute. We still like if you're the Ravens and you did that, I still think as a fan, you're like, wait a minute, we have 2 timeouts. We have Lamar. We don't think he can get 5 yards.
I know. I don't know. It's only 5 yards. That's the thing. See, if it was like 4th and 15,
then I get it.
But 4th and 5, come on. You have Jerry Jeudy,
is
Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And especially when I get it, Geno Smith played well enough to win, but he scored 18 points. Like, let's not get over the moon about how good Geno played.
No, there was not. I mean, Geno, I give a lot of props to Geno. Also, I will say one thing, just non-football related. It was interesting to see so many former Seahawks reactions to Russell Wilson's loss with Denver on social media. There was a lot of guys like chirping him that used to be his teammates, like Doug Baldwin, Richard Sherman. I'm like,
I don't think he's popular.
I don't think he's popular either, which is wild to me for a guy that stuck around in Seattle for so long and had some success there. Clearly, I mean,
I think people are sick of the cordiness of him. I think if you're an NFL player, you're probably pretty sick of that stuff.
Wow, I don't know. His business decisions are weird in terms of like that TikTok that he filmed the other day. I don't know who that was with. I was like, whoa, that's a little bit corny, bud. That's pretty.
Was that the one about like faith? He put out one the other day about like the most important.
Go ahead, but like it was just like, what are we doing?
Everything about Russ right now.
Filmed in a hotel room.
Everything about Russ right now is so weird.
He had a good game. I don't think Russ was the problem. I mean,
no, he played well enough to win that game. But the thing is, right now, I don't know if he plays like that. I don't know if he's gonna play well enough to beat any of these AFC West teams.
Well, here again, I think that it's week 1.
It's week 1. No, it comes back to that. It's week 1. And I mean, I know what your hot take is. I can already guess. Yeah. So let's get into it. How about you start? What is your hot take of the week?
Yeah. So my hot take of the week, it'll actually go back. Me and Ethan have both said, well, preseason doesn't really matter that much. And I don't think it truthfully does to the number ones. My hot take is that maybe after seeing everything that just happened with a lot of teams and a lot of good quarterbacks, quote unquote, good quarterbacks, maybe preseason reps are a little bit more valuable for starters than some think. I know there was plenty like Herbert who didn't play, who had a very good week 1. I understand that. But for some of these guys, like I'll throw Carr in there, I'll throw Burrow in there, I'll throw Stafford in there. They didn't play a snap of the preseason. There's a lot of guys around the league that looked rusty week 1. Whether it be from decision-making standpoints or just overall play. Maybe preseason has a little bit more validity than I once thought in terms of the value that can actually offer just off of game reps and maybe just, seeing it. A lot of times guys talk about, well, I need to get hit first before I really get locked in. But I just think after watching so many odd things unravel week 1, like I think 8 playoff teams from last year lost week 1. And it was to some really head-scratching teams. So
I mean, there were a lot of upsets.
There were a lot of upsets, and I don't know if that's because they probably came to a game that, we're not playing a very good team. Maybe they just want it more. I don't know. But I think my takeaway is that, maybe preseason you need a couple reps, not a whole game, not a whole, like maybe just one drive, and you just say very conservative. But you need to see the field a little bit more. Practice does do it, and I still think I wouldn't want my quarterback or anyone playing more than just a drive or two. But maybe I was underestimating the importance of, just a touch of preseason action can have. A touch.
No, I get the argument. Mine's actually, to add on, my conclusion is not about quarterbacks. It's about offensive lines. I feel like offensive lines across the league looked slow, and defensive, especially edge rushers, were dominating the tackles just because these offensive linemen, all they've been doing is basically hitting pads for the last month. And this was the first time they were hitting another defensive player and actually being able to hit them. It's not like in practice. I mean, when you do joint practices, you can touch them, but it's not on the level in which they do it right now. So for my conclusion was all about offensive lines, like people overreacting about the Bengals, like, oh, their offensive line isn't fixed.
Yeah.
I think it's this is a brand new unit. And this is the first time they're really all playing against each other, against stuns, twists, any kind of exotic pressures, especially from a team like Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so the one team that I will say that I just think is a bad offensive line, and this doesn't apply to, is the Raiders. Do not take this conclusion if you're a Raiders fan. I think your offensive line just isn't very good, and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa took the lunch from you. But I think
Yeah.
those two guys are going to take the lunch from a lot of offensive linemen. I mean, Colton Miller's a really good player, and Khalil Mack made him look bad. But I just think those two edge rushers are just elite. But I think the Raiders do have some issues, especially on the right side of the line, that I would be concerned about, especially with Carr's ability when pressure gets in his face. He kind of seems to shrivel up.
Yep.
So I hope he can get out of that mold. Parham looked good when Parham came in. I don't get why he wasn't the starter to start. He came into the game about in the third quarter. And from there, the offensive line issues kind of went away. So if I were the Raiders, I'd be starting Parham. I don't get why that decision was ever made that he wasn't.
I guess one thing I'll say again, just going back to your point on the offensive line, in training camp, all you see is the same rotation of pass rush moves from your guys.
Yeah.
Like you don't see a high variation. You don't I'm sure, like if we talk with the Bengals, like I'm sure Lyle Collins saw a lot of Joseph Osai, Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt. I promise you has different skill sets all lined up on the right tackle against them. Like there's plenty of different variations you're going to see that you don't see in training camp.
For sure. So Drew, who's watching, I assume this is probably Cody. Good morning, Cody.
Morning.
So we need to set a unit protecting rotating offensive lineman. Makes it hard to build trust with the rest of the offense, but no doubt Mac affected and Bosa too. Wait, they were rotating their offensive linemen? It's not a set line. I just assumed that Parham came in because there was like an injury or something. They're rotating offensive linemen?
Well, I'll be honest, it probably was. The Bengals rotated offensive line last year when it got really bad.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that doesn't
like
sound
we would
good.
switch from like Isaiah Prince to Akeem Adeniji. It was back and forth. When you have a very bad O-line, typically you have to try different things.
Okay. Well, so those are our hot takes of the week. Is there anything you want to add on? Oh, I guess I haven't said mine.
Yeah, you haven't said yours. Let's see. Someone hasn't said theirs.
It's early.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my hot take of the week is, so I was going between two. I'm going to say my first one just as I'm now totally stamping this. Before I was like a little, and this is my conclusion from week one. I think the Giants are making the playoffs. Based on what I saw, I kind of believe in this team. I think Brian Daboll is real. I think he's a really good coach. And with now Dallas missing Dak for a month, I think that really opens up that last seed in the wild card race. I think that 7th seed, a team can really sneak in. And right now, what I'm going to put my money on is I think it's the Giants. I think Saquon looks really good if he can stay healthy. I think that offense, while Daniel Jones doesn't look great, he's doing enough to keep them in games. I mean, they just beat Tennessee. Brian Daboll is inspiring this team to play well, and that defense looks really good. So for me, this is my week one thing, and I had said my hot take was I thought they were a dark horse team. I'm stamping it. I think they will make the playoffs. I am now saying that is my stamp.
I still think you're looking over the team. I think there's a team that's in the division that's better than them. That's would be in second place. I think the Commanders look better than the Giants do.
I disagree.
I know you do. Here's the thing. Do you trust Daniel Jones to get this team close to the playoffs? Do you really trust?
But I
Daniel
don't trust
Jones?
Carson Wentz.
I trust Carson Wentz. If I had to choose between the two, I'll choose between the two. One that's actually shown me they can actually play well at some point.
I guess, but I think Saquon is a more impactful player than both of them. If Saquon stays healthy. I mean, that's the main thing. He hasn't stayed healthy.
Huge question. We're also talking about a Giants team that employs a healthy Kadarius Toney and for some reason doesn't play him.
Yeah, I think there's something in the locker room that's going on that just isn't working right now.
How he's like, if you want, like when he played last year, he was clearly the most talented wide receiver on that roster. I don't think that's changed.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. But I think he's probably doing something in the locker room. There must be something behind the. You don't just do that to a player that talented.
Well, they also start Kenny Golladay, and that guy clearly doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, Kenny Galladay's bad.
Kenny Galladay is the worst free agent signing, I think, probably the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was made the highest wide receiver in the league. He currently has the biggest cap hit of any receiver right now.
Yeah, and it's hilarious. I remember when I wanted the Bengals to sign him, and then we didn't, and we got Jamar Chase instead because we needed a wide receiver. So thank God they didn't Kenny Galladay because he's certified garbage.
I mean, you'd have Sewell, so I mean, there'd be some prop there.
Sewell would be if we developed him right. Yeah.
I mean, he's really good in Detroit.
Sewell is great in Detroit, but I think again, on this conversation of it, I would much rather still have Chase than Sewell, but
for sure. Well, so let me go on to my actual hot take. So that's just me. I wanted to like update.
Oh, okay.
Like I wanted to like update.
I had said on it.
Yeah, like I had said that they were dark horse. I wasn't exactly sure. I was like, this could be a sneaky team. Now I'm saying I think they're a playoff team. But my real hot take is I think Cordell Patterson is the most underrated player in the league. I think week in, week out, Cordell Patterson is so good. The fact that he's in his 30s and playing this well for the Falcons still is crazy. I mean, a lot of people, and me included, give Debo the credit of that he's the first kind of mix of this running back, this H-back kind of role, this really running back / receiver kind of guy. But in the comments of when I said that, and then we posted it on TikTok, people were like, what about Cordell Patterson? He kind of did it first. And I think I kind of have to eat crow. I think you're right. I think Cordell Patterson is really the mold of what that can look like. Now, he's more of a running back than he is a receiver at this point, whereas Debo's the other way around. But Cordell Patterson is so slept on. He is the only reason the Falcons are even relevant right now.
Yeah. I would agree. He's the only reason the offense did anything last week.
Again, he is so good and no one gives him any credit. And I think it's mainly just because he started his career as a kick returner, which honestly, his kick return career, if you're going to put Devin Hester in, I almost think Cordell Patterson needs to be in the Hall of Fame too. Just from looking at the numbers and the way that it works. I don't know. What do you think?
Like, here's my thing on Cordell. I think Cordell's a really good player. I agree. He's very underrated. But are you saying that because the numbers support it or because he's a fantasy god in the last 2 years? Like, is that figuring into it? I feel like some of his fantasy football success because he gets so many touches and maybe like a PPR, like he's really good. But I mean, that's just my only thought on the underrated mark. I still think he's very good. I still think he's really found himself a nice little niche in Atlanta. I think a lot of teams would certainly desire his abilities, but is it he's the most underrated, or are you saying that because the fantasy side is leaking in a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard not to put the fantasy side in, but at the end of the day, the reason I say he's underrated is because last offseason, no one was signing him. In fact, it took him forever to get signed. And then he comes on to the Falcons and he had over 1,000 scrimmage yards, 11 touchdowns, plus he offers value in the kicking and punting game. I mean, somehow he's in his 30s as a running back, and I feel like every single year of his career he's gotten better and better because people were talking about him in Minnesota as a complete bust.
Well, yeah, the way Minnesota was using him was like, I don't know. I never saw him as like a great receiver at Tennessee. Even I remember when he came out, it was never like, oh, this is like super wild. But he does well. He just seemed like another speedster, which typically in the NFL, he was just used like that, whether he was in Chicago, New England or with Minnesota. It was just kind of, oh, he can kick return. He can play wide receiver maybe. He's more of a gadget guy than anything else. But now in Atlanta, he's certainly found a much greater role. And I think you're right. He was more doing the wide receiver running back combo before Debo was. So,
yeah. And I mean, the numbers don't really support that I would really call him a Hall of Fame player. I just think when you look at it, when people talk about best running backs in the league, Cordell Patterson isn't even in the breath of what you think about.
I guess he is considered a running back now.
He's considered a running back now, but I mean, he had 1,000 scrimmage yards last year, 11 touchdowns. In his first game this year, he had 136 yards, a touchdown. I mean, that's great value from a dude that people kind of don't even talk about at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any team in the league right now, unless if you have one of the top 10 guys, would be happy with Cordell Patterson being in their running back room.
I would agree. I think they would be pretty satisfied with that.
I mean, I think he adds a lot of value, and no one ever talks about him in that conversation. So that's why I say I think fantasy obviously leaks in because he was like a waiver wire pickup who played really well, ended up as a top 10 running back. Yeah. But I mean, when you look at it, even numbers wise, he really should be not in the top 10 conversation, but should definitely be in the top 20 conversation, top 15 conversation. I think he deserves to be there, and I think people just overlook him because he plays in Atlanta right now.
I agree. I mean, Atlanta is kind of Although they almost snuck one out there week 1, but yeah, Atlanta's kind of not the place to be for the NFL right now.
For sure. All right, so we are going to move into our next segment, which is called In and Out. So this was created by Clark, and what we are going to do is we are going to pick a player who had a bad week, so is on the out, and we're going to say why they might be coming back in. So we're going to pick a player who had a down week 1 and say why they might rebound or not to overreact.
Love it. I'll let you go first. I'm intrigued.
So my player is, I thought about 2 different quarterbacks. So I almost went with Joe Burrow. But to me, Joe Burrow is one, if I pick it, like he's obviously going to come back. This was obviously just a bad week. I don't feel like there's anything that's that concerning right now. I get that you want to say the offensive line, he ran into some pressures, things like that. But he's going to come back. So I didn't think that was that interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
The one I really want to talk about is a quarterback we've already talked about, and that's Derek Carr. Derek Carr showed up week 1, played. Honestly, this is going to be how I break it down. He made some really good throws and then made some boneheaded throws. He showed that he has, anytime he has to unwield the deep ball, and I made this point about underthrown PI earlier, he somehow always skies that thing underneath the receiver. And I think that's going to continue this year. Because on that deep shot to Devontae Adams had an easy 3 steps on Bryce Callahan. There was no communication between Asante Samuel and Bryce Callahan. Devontae gets off the drop, and Callahan is easy 3 steps behind him with no safety coverage over the top. That should have been an easy touchdown. But Derek Carr somehow skies the ball to allow Asante Samuel to come off the flat receiver, run 30 yards down the field, and pick it off. I mean, talk about concerning.
Agree.
You have to look at that. And then on the next drive, he comes out and tries to throw an out route and doesn't see Bryce Callahan, and Bryce Callahan almost takes it for 6. I mean, Derek Carr showed a lot of things that were concerning. To me, actually, the worst throw of the game was a drive no one's talking about right now, which is that throw to Darren Waller in the end zone, where Darren Waller was like right in front of him, and he threw it way behind him, and it was almost a pick to Derwin James, even though Darren Waller had the end zone wide open for an easy touchdown. So the reason I'm picking Carr is I think this is a situation of he's getting used to a scheme. He's getting used to the new offensive line, how it's moving, how it's going. Everything is new to him. And while we both say he's not top 10 and he's right outside of it, he's fringe top 10, I think he'll be able to rebound from this. And the biggest thing is not every week is he going to be playing Bosa and Mack. I think a lot of people are trying to say Carr played so bad, he sucks so much, and they're not factoring into this pass rush is just legit. There was pressure in his face all day. He's not going to play this every week. Now, while I don't think he'll get to that top 10 mark, I think he's going to get back to where he was. Because in week 1, he played really, really bad. And he was the reason the Raiders probably lose, if we're being honest. So for my in and out player, I got to go Derek Carr. I think he's going to get back to that fringe top 10 level. I think it was a rough week 1 for him, but I hope he gets back there. If he plays like this, the Raiders better look for a new quarterback after this year.
Yeah, I like it. I think, again, I'm with you. I think Carr, definitely some concerns, but I think you're right. It's new offensive scheme. He's getting used to things. A little bit change of personnel on the outside. I know it's Devontae Adams in there and stuff, and not run for a baller, but take a little bit of time to smooth things over and get things figured out. So I understand it. I like that you still think he's in. We still have the not going to sell out on him yet. So for my guy that I was between on in and out after week 1, I think it was a dude on a team that got not enough credit for a head-scratching loss, because it truthfully was. And I feel like not a lot of people talked about what was an underwhelming week 1 performance. It's a guy you've touched on a little bit this year, earlier this offseason. In or out for me this week is Derrick Henry. Only averaged 3.9 yards per carry, 21 carries for 82 yards. He doesn't really do a ton in the passing game, as he had 0 catches. The concern for me going into the offseason and going into this season has been, while I still think he's the best back in the league, has been if he's going to stay at the same usage rate. And at this rate, after this game, it kind of looked like maybe it's getting to him a little bit. I know the Giants have a good defense, and that could have slowed him down, certainly. But I think what I'm a little bit worried about, too, is that with no A.J. Brown, with no Julio Jones, your top receivers being guys like, Treylon Burks, who's unproven, Robert Woods, who only had one catch, is that will teams just sell out on Derrick Henry? And so I think there's a number of things: age, usage, and will teams sell out when I look at Derrick Henry? I thought about amending my stance on him being the best back. I still don't think I'll change it yet. I'm still in on Derrick Henry, but I'm still worried that, again, teams look at the Titans and say, I'm not concerned about anyone on the outside right now. I don't think there's anyone who you really sit there and think about, oh no, this guy's going to be a matchup nightmare for us on the outside. They don't have that. Burks could be it, but it's only going to be week 2 next week of his rookie season. Robert Woods is fine, but truthfully, he's probably a number 2 for most other teams. His best seasons were schematically when he was put together as a wide receiver with the Rams. And then outside of that, it's a lot of like, okay, what are we doing here? So I was teetering on the fence. I almost said out, but I remember this is Derrick Henry. So I'm still in on Derrick, but there's a lot of things the Titans are involved with right now, whether it be, how people are going to approach him, how much they're going to continue to use him. I'm just worried about him. I think he might break down a little bit this year.
No, I like that pick. I thought he would break down. That was what I said over the offseason. I predicted that this was going to happen. Again, I don't think he's going to break down to where he's like not playable anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to be as effective. And that's why I thought the Titans weren't going to be a playoff team.
Yeah. The Titans, again, I think they're one of those teams that I right now would fall into the category of like, that was unfortunate week 1, but I'm a little more concerned than others because I don't know if the personnel is that good.
I don't think the personnel is good enough there. People that always win on the back of Derrick Henry is the mover of that offense, but if Derrick Henry isn't moving the offense, they don't really have anyone threatening on the outside. They don't have a threatening tight end, really.
Nope.
Their quarterback isn't really threatening. Their offensive line is okay. Their defense, now without their best pass rushers, without their best pass rusher, is okay.
Yeah.
They have Justin Simmons, but no Harold Landry anymore out the year. They have Kevin Byard, who's really good, but a safety can't really make or break your defense.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think, if there was the Titans more, I agree with you. Overall, as a whole, it's not because of, I think week 1 was a little more concerning because of the talent. I don't know if they have the talent to keep up with other teams.
Yeah.
Like with the Raiders, for example, with the Raiders, with the Bengals, with a team maybe like the Cardinals or a team like, even – I don't know, the Rams. It's like, okay, bad week 1, but you still see talent on the roster. Like, okay, they'll make up for it. It was just something that happened week 1.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move into our next segment, which is called Fan Icks. So we've gone through now. Fans are out and about. They're on Twitter. They're everywhere. And so I thought I'd introduce a segment where we talk about things that are annoying us about fans. And they're not of specific fan bases. Maybe they are, but it's just things that you see that are kind of icks. I'm thinking about making this a TikTok segment as well. So Clark, do you want to go first? What's your first?
Yeah, I have one that stands off a ton. This is one that I see all the time. And again, it comes between the instant need to compare everyone. I understand it. And it really stems from the conversation between Burrow and Herbert.
Yeah.
For me, the fan ick is like, okay, your quarterback has a really good game, maybe a slightly less / not good performance to the other quarterback of another team who doesn't even relate to you. And you just immediately are like, this is X, Y, and Z. I told you this. This is why this guy's better. Oh my God, you have such a shit quarterback. Look at what I have. Look at these numbers from one game that prove everything. I'm so to me, that's just so eyewash and ridiculous. The constant pettiness and need to go back and forth rather than just to maybe acknowledge the fact that it's allowable that 2 quarterbacks be good. I don't know if that's just a thing you can't have. So I guess my fanic overall for most teams is just the instant need to draw a comparison. We don't need to do it all the time. You can allow others to enjoy what they have while you enjoy what you have yourself. There's nowhere in the rule book where it says you have to crap down someone's throat just to make a comparison. You don't have to do it. The fanic for me is the instant need for comparison. I just don't need it.
No, that makes total sense. I get that one. And I'm gonna call out someone, and it's Arjun from PFF.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's the worst offender of this. Because last week he was like going off about how like we shouldn't compare Khalil Mack and Trey Hendrickson, and like making the Chargers Bengals rivalry like even deeper with comparing things other than Burrow and Herbert. I'm like, dude, come on. Hendrickson is a good player. I get that Khalil Mack played incredibly well, but why are we comparing the Khalil Mack is a Hall of Famer? Like, what are we even talking about?
No, I think it's stupid. Like, again, like, yeah, Arjun's definitely the guy who's like, Burrow, like, I didn't check. I think I have him muted on Twitter, but
yeah, he had plenty of things to say about it.
I'm sure he did. And it's like, it's just classic to me. Cause like, again, if this was like, again, Bengals fans probably would have done the same thing if this would have happened the other way. If Herbert had a terrible game and Burrow just like played great.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, we can just acknowledge the fact that both teams are good, I think. I mean, that both quarterbacks are really good, and you should be glad to have them. And sure, you can make comparisons. I think maybe when the season's over, when you want to do your final list, but week one, or just like the insistent on everything just to make a conversation that doesn't need to be had, it's just silly.
It's just silly. It's very, very silly.
Well, I think like one more thing. I think it tails into like, okay, it's basically saying, oh, you can't enjoy this. You can't enjoy that. Like, don't like that because I have a stat that says so. It's like,
well, the funniest is then in the Burrow Herbert thing, is then when Dolphins fans try to chime in about Tua.
It's like, really? Just stay out of this one.
Or like, because there were a bunch of Dolphins fans that were chirping Bengals fans all week about Burrow. Like, oh,
that's what I've never understood. That's
like,
what
what are you talking about? Like, why are you a part of this?
Yeah.
At least the Chargers and Bengals things kind of make sense because it's annoying and I'm sick of the conversation because at the end of the day, why does it matter?
Yeah.
I mean, during the Phillip Rivers years, it wasn't like Chargers fans were constantly chirping New York Giants and Steelers fans about the Eli Ben Roethlisberger. They just talked about it in the media, but it wasn't like a thing that fans had to feel like they justified it all the time.
Yeah.
But
now it feels like there's this coddling need to say it all the time.
And throw it into any conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So my fan ick has to do with actually a couple of different teams and a couple of different arguments that made. Mine is when your team loses and the winning team is gloating to you and your response is that they should have beat you by more points. That is so annoying to me.
No, it's very dumb.
A loss is a loss. Like Raiders fans all week were like, oh, you got 3 turnovers and only won by 5. Who cares? It's a loss. Who cares? Also, the point total at the end of the game does not matter because, like in the Chargers case, they just went conservative and weren't really playing offense. They were just trying to bleed clock. They weren't trying to score points. They were trying to get ticks off the mark. It's not like the Raiders came back, yes, and it became close at the end. But at the end of the day, you still lost. It doesn't matter how many points it is. Like, oh, you should have beaten me by more. I played so bad.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares?
I know.
You lost.
It still counts as a win or a loss in the column last time I checked, no matter what the differential is. So.
Oh, also, hey, Clark, look who just checked in.
Oh, my God. Get out of here. What are you doing? Thanks, Lizzie. Oh my goodness. Oh God, Raiders fans are so annoying. They are really annoying.
They are annoying.
If you know a girl who's a Raiders fan, do not ask her to be your girlfriend. That is just a massive. Or not actually, just say no if she asks you, to go out or anything like that. Just don't say yes. Avoid that conversation at all costs. It's terrible.
For sure. So that's my fan ick. Whenever you lose and your only response to the other team's fans when they're chirping you is like, oh, you should have won by more points. Like, you're a bad team. You only won by 5. Okay.
No, it's like, I mean, again, for me, like, with the Bengals, like I didn't steal, like, I hope no Bengals fans are like, oh, well, we should have won like 3 times. Well, we didn't do that. We missed PATs and 29-yard field goals. So
another one is, and sometimes it is true, I will say, is any time that you say we beat ourselves, sometimes sometimes it is true.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is true. But again, this is another Raiders fan because now our TikTok is flooded with all those Raiders people in our For You page. Every single one of their arguments is like, oh, you guys, like, all you did was chirp all offseason and you came in and won and only won by 5. Like, you guys are like so bad. Like, we beat ourselves. If Carr didn't throw those 3 interceptions, like, we would have won the game. We beat ourselves.
Yeah, the hypothetical game is a tiresome game that is just useless.
Yeah. All right. So let's move in to our next segment, which actually we're just talking about the Brett Favre situation.
Yeah.
So if you didn't see it over the weekend, Brett Favre has gotten thrown into some scandal. Clark, do you want to explain it?
Yeah. So basically, essentially, I believe the story of everything is that Brett Favre used the welfare system to exact out money with the help of, let me just make sure I get this correct, since I said it to you the other day.
Yeah, basically he's using...
Yeah, so basically so according to text messages that were in court filing, former Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant helped Brett Favre obtain welfare funds in order to build a new volleyball center at the University of Southern Mississippi. So that's not okay. That's terrible. Brett Favre, I think probably underrated guy for just shitting on his own reputation since leading the NFL. You've had so many weird and bad things come out about Brett Favre, I feel like. Yep. It's like, photos he was sending that former New York Jets employee of just like not okay stuff at all. Then now you have this. It's like, what is going on, Brett? This is terrible. This is really, really bad. Because here's the thing I don't get to. Brett Favre, you have to have an exponential amount of wealth, whether it be from your crappy Levi commercials or your contract money left over in Green Bay or whatever various teams in Minnesota or New York. You could also have gone out to other private areas and been like, hey, you know what? Help me fundraise for this. You wouldn't have to go ask the freaking governor for welfare. What are you kidding me? What an absolute joke. Like, that's such a slimy, total slime ball act. Like, so low.
So low. No, I totally agree. I mean, I don't have that much to say on it. I just feel like Brett Favre is just like torpedoed himself.
Oh,
after his
for
career.
Sure. It's been an underrated, like, slow ball downwards. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's been really bad.
I don't know. I feel like anytime I see Brett Favre's name, it's typically for all the wrong reasons. Like, all the wrong reasons.
For sure. All right, so let's move into our last thing, which is our week 2 preview. So what we're going to do, and how I thought I'd start this, is I think the best place to start is let's pick tonight's game. So we have the Chargers playing the Chiefs tonight in Arrowhead. Justin Herbert and the Chargers are going into Kansas City. They are playing on the first Thursday night game of the year. Clark, who do you have winning?
I went through this a lot of times in my head. I think these two teams are really, really close. I think these two teams have strengths that outweigh one another in some different ways.
Wait, before you say it, will your prediction change if JC Jackson plays or does not play?
No, it would still say the same. Still say the same. I have Kansas City winning this game. I think this is a game. I think it'll be probably a field goal game.
Yeah.
I know they're missing Harrison Butker. That could play into it a little bit. That's actually an injury I'm more worried about just because you have to switch kickers if you're Kansas City. I'm not worried more. Obviously, Jackson on the field will be a big impact than Harrison Butker. But I think Kansas City wins by 3. I think this is a situation this season where these two teams probably split their home series. Yeah. I think week 2, Kansas City looked really, really good last week. I expect them to build upon that. I would say probably final score 34-31. I think this is going to be a shootout. I know the Chargers defense is much improved, but let's say they are missing JC Jackson. That's a tough miss to have. I just think Kansas City's offense looks really efficient. It's going to be a 3-point game in my mind. I like Kansas City, though, again, because they're at home. I think it's a tough one to go into week 2 and try to pull out in prime time. I like Kansas City.
Yeah, this one I'm also really tossed up on. Even as a Chargers fan, this one I think this is the hardest game to pick. And I don't get these people that are claiming it's a blowout. Like, There was some like ESPN show yesterday where somebody it was Jacoby Jones picked the Chargers to win by 3. And the entire crew started laughing, like Nick Wright and whoever else was on the show. And I'm like, this game is going to be really, really close. Either way, I think it's a 3-point game. I think it could sway either direction, depending on who has the ball last. And I think it's going to be who makes the least amount of mistakes. Now, the one X factor in this game, and I think it's the biggest X factor of it, is how is this new pass rush of the Chargers going to affect Mahomes?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the biggest change to either of these teams. And I think that's really going to be what decides it. Because the one thing about Mahomes is he's been really good against edge pressure. Mm-hmm. Usually he's able to scramble out of the pocket, make throws off the cusp, but he's never played a tandem of this caliber. So to me, that is the biggest X factor. If the Chargers get home, I think the Chargers take it. If Mahomes is a wizard like he was against Arizona, then I think the Chiefs take it. And again, I think it'll be a 3-point game either way. I'm a homer, so of course I'm going to pick the Chargers by 3. I think it'll be exactly your score. I think it'll be 34-31. I think they'll each get field goals. I think they'll each turn touchdowns. I think this game, we're going to see a lot of both teams going for it on 4th down.
I would imagine so. You have 2 aggressive coaches, especially Staley's like lives and dies by it. I almost thought he was going to do that one last week on like 4th and 5 or whatever from his own 40, but then rush the punt team out there. I thought he was going to go for it then.
Yeah, I thought he was too. I mean, the punt ended up being really good. People are all mad because all the analytics Charger fans are like so mad. Like they can't ever take the decision making out of it because the win graph, technically, if they had gone for it there, it would have added 3 points. But that doesn't add in that the punt was down to the 2.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, if the punt had gone into end zone, you probably would have been like, should have went for it. But
yeah,
the result of the punt was the right decision. You pinned him down at the 2. That's the right decision.
I agree.
I mean, again, and you were up at that point. There was no need to I would have got it if you'd went for it. But
yeah,
again, the punt was good. It was clean. It went to the 2-yard line. You can't be mad about that. But my thing is, I think the Chiefs are going to go for it a lot because they won't have a kicker.
Yeah, I mean that'll hurt. I mean they still have a punter. But they won't have a kicker in Harrison Butker.
So I think both teams are going to go for it a lot, and that might end up deciding the game, the 4th down conversion rate. For me, I think if J.C. Jackson goes, I think it makes the Chargers defense a little bit more interesting.
I agree.
I do not think he will go from what it sounds like. He's a game time decision. He was a game time decision last week. It doesn't feel like he's going to go. No Keenan Allen is also a big blow for the Chargers.
That is a tough one. But DeAndre Carter looks good. Josh Palmer, his looks good.
I
mean, it's certainly a little bit more of a concerning in the unit for itself. But again, I don't think Kansas City's defense is just okay.
Especially without Trent McDuffie.
Yeah.
It takes out another corner piece for them.
Yeah.
A lot of these moves I just think are net even. I think right now, if you line it up, I don't see either team blowing out each other. I don't think either team will run the brakes.
No, I think it's again, it just stays close. I think it's going to, I feel like all of their matchups the last, 2 years now, maybe 2 years. Yeah. 2 years now have stayed close. They've been close.
Under the Herbert era, the Chargers and Chiefs have been 2-2, and the 2 Chiefs wins were in overtime. I mean,
yeah, I know.
These have just been close games. This is for all the Chiefs fans that act like the Chargers aren't legit. This is obviously like a real rivalry. This is obviously the newest dawn of a divisional matchup.
Well, just really quick on this. I don't know what the outright need to deny the Chargers rival of like these teams currently. I don't get it. Like, I know because like, here's the thing. I understand if you don't want to call it a rivalry because you don't play the teams close or something like that. I feel like as long I've grown up in San Diego for so long when the Chargers are here, no matter when those 2 teams played, no matter where in the AFC, those 2 teams shared or split season series quite a bit, I feel like. Mm-hmm. So to deny this idea that the Chargers aren't rivals to a team like Kansas City, that's silly. I think that's, it's a dumb thing. The season records of the last couple of years have been close. It's not a situation where it's like Bears and Packers, where the Packers just punch the Bears in the mouth every time.
I mean, again, if the Chargers win tonight, they will be over 500 against Mahomes under the Herbert era. Yeah. Which not a lot of teams can say they've done. So we will see. Again, I think it'll be a really close game. Again, I'm a Chargers fan, and I'm reluctant to pick them just because I can see the Chiefs winning just as much as I can see the Chargers winning. I think this game is going to be super close. I think it's going to come down to the end. If the Chargers win, though, that is really big news for the NFL because their schedule gets so soft until week 9. They play pretty much every bad team you can think of. They play Atlanta. They play Houston. They play Seattle. They play Denver in that stretch. They play Jacksonville. They pretty much play every bad team you can think of.
No, so, they get some stinkers in there for sure.
If they win tonight, you could be looking at them by week 10. They're 8-1, which
in theory,
we'll see. In theory, if they don't,
assuming the Chargers avoid charging every once in a while,
for sure,
as some people say,
for sure, you gotta love charging.
No, I think the charging days are done. I think those are gone.
We'll see. So, are there any other key matchups you want to talk about before we get on?
I think Ravens and Dolphins should be a fun game. I expect the Ravens to blow the doors off Miami. I think.
Oh, I think so too.
I think Lamar is definitely going to be pissed about how things went last season against them with his lowest career point total against them. Another interesting matchup, I would say. I don't know. I'm looking at a lot of teams for bounce backs. Like, I would love, like, if, for the Broncos, the Bengals, for the Rams, for the Raiders. These are all teams that are considered 6-point favorites. If I'm a fan of them, I'm looking for big bounce back weeks. So I think an interesting game too. Saints Buccaneers. Saints have had Tom Brady's numbers for a while here. I want to see if that continues. So probably not. But
I have two games that I think are good matchups that I'm going to be looking out for, which is Raiders Cardinals.
Yep.
I want to see mainly from both of these teams. They're both 0-1 right now. Cardinals got the doors beaten off them. Mm-hmm. Raiders lost to the Chargers and their offensive line was bullied. Now, I want to see how this blitz-heavy Cardinals team did. Again, I have no idea why they blitzed Mahomes at over 50%. Mahomes is the best at escaping pressure and finding open guys on, like, just busted plays. I don't get why you take guys out of coverage at such a high rate. Whatever, but so I'm interested in that matchup. I think those teams are evenly matched. I think the Raiders take it home, but and then the other one is just to see where these two teams are is Minnesota and Philly. I think this is a good pull to see where these two teams match up against each other. Because as you saw, Theo Ash called the Vikings the Super Bowl contenders now.
They have Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
I don't get the argument. I don't think they're quite there. I mean, yes, they beat Green Bay, but again, you said last week, Green Bay played really bad last week. We'll see if they bounce back. They get to play the Bears, which
they're 10-point favorites against Chicago.
Why is that on Sunday Night Football?
It's always on Sunday Night Football.
Who put that up there? Who cares? The Bears suck. I'm sorry. The Bears are bad.
Although I will say this for the Bears, Fantasy Football AZ, who constantly shows his ass on Twitter, apparently you can't celebrate. He was upset that the Bears were celebrating because Justin Fields only had 8 completions. See, that's an ick right there. Oh, you can't celebrate because of X reason. Fuck off.
I agree. Also, the conditions in Soldier Field
horrible.
Were disgusting.
Yeah.
You could put any quarterback in that Soldier Field, and they probably would have played better than Fields, but not that much better.
Just looking at it on an off note, there are some huge spread lines this week in betting.
Well, the matchups just honestly across the board, like when I was doing pick'ems for work, I was like, man, a lot of these games just.
There's 3 10-point favorites this week.
There's some huge spreads. I mean, there's just not that many good matchups. The good matchups are Thursday Night Football tonight, Monday Night Football. I would say, I don't even think both. I think the Bills are going to beat the Titans. But I think the Minnesota-Philly game is good.
Yeah. Also, I'll give a shout-out here. This is a total off thing, but shout out to the Detroit Lions. This is their first game in 3 years that they are favored by a sportsbook to win a game. They are 1.5-point favorites against the Washington Commanders at home. So shout out to the Detroit Lions. Everyone knows I'm a Motor City Kitty homer a little bit. I'm a fan of what they're doing over there. So should be a fun week too, though. And I think no matter what, the way you look at it, again, it's football.
It should be a good week.
Should be interesting to see if some teams can bounce back.
Any last comments before we hop off?
No, nothing I can think of, at least on the NFL side, and thinking about other things. San Diego Padres are leaking oil again. What's new? Classic. 3/5 of their starting rotations poo-poo, but we'll get to them sometime soon here.
Yep. All right, this has been From the Backseat. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed our new segments. Make sure to leave us a rating on all podcasting platforms. Make sure to subscribe and like on YouTube if you're watching it here. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And thank you for all the love. Have a great rest of your week.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.